Senator Mitch McConnell paid a visit to Lexington today, delivering remarks in front of 350 business leaders at a Commerce luncheon. Senator McConnell covered a lot of topics like the economy and current race to the White House. And as his time in Senate leadership winds to a close, he's now looking back on his career. For nearly 40 years, he has influenced leaders in the Senate.
Actually, some of you may know this. My first real break in politics was my internship with Henry Clay.
On Wednesday, Senator Mitch McConnell shared his years of experience with leaders in the local business community.
This particular administration, in my view, made two very significant mistakes.
He says that includes post-pandemic spending with its impact on inflation. His other concern was the handling of the southern border. And no matter who wins the election in November, he says he plans on working with the next administration on national defense.
We ought to try to find things we can agree on and do those. But there are some real advantages to being in the majority. I've been the majority leader and I've been the minority leader. Majority better.
The senator says he's disappointed with the U.S.'s role in the war in Ukraine, although he feels like he has made a difference here at home and for the people of Kentucky. McConnell is proud of the progress on the Brent Spence Bridge and to see it finally come together.
I think none of my members were too happy to see me standing by Joe Biden up in northern Kentucky.
His Republican colleagues elected him 9 times to guide the party. Now, as the Senate Majority Leader prepares to pass the gavel at the end of the year, he says he's grateful for the chance to serve the American people.
Thanking you all for the opportunity to have served as long as I have. My mother didn't even think I was going to win. And it was no landslide.
Now, we did try to talk with the senator after that luncheon today, but his team told us he was not taking any questions. Senator McConnell does have a new book coming out. It's called The Price of Power, and it'll be released October 29th.